AITA for letting my picky eater child go hungry. My 4-year-old has decided to become a picky eater. He doesn't have autism or anything else that causes sensory issues. He's just picky now. He used to be willing to eat anything. If he had his way, he'd only eat french fries and goldfish. Obviously I'm not going to let him only eat those two things. I'm also not going to be bossed around by a toddler. What I've been doing is that if he turns up his nose at a meal, I'll just say something like, alright, I guess you can eat this later, and put the food in the fridge. If he asks for a snack, I offer him the food. And if he refuses, no snacks except for milk, at the next meal, I'll offer it to him then. If he didn't eat it before, he carries on for a bit. But he eventually gets hungry enough that he'll eat whatever it was he was refusing to eat before. He's never gone more than a day of refusing to eat. If he did, I'd probably feed him something else. My mom friends are horrified I'd do this to my kid and tell me I'm old-fashioned. I also feel like the worst mother in the world when my kid is whining about how hungry he is. For the record, my husband is completely on board with this method. AITA for letting him go hungry. Edit, this must have reached the front page or something. Thanks for all your comments. I'm a bit too overwhelmed to reply to them all. Even though this sub, I just want to address some common points. I don't want to force him to eat things he hates. I do want to promote his individuality. I feel like I have no other choice but to be strict, because if I'm not, he'd have me serving him an unhealthy diet. I don't want him to grow up thinking he's entitled to order me or anyone else to cook special meals for him. I do season my food and cook it in other ways besides steaming or boiling. I would never let him not eat for a long time like some of you have described. Or try to serve him uneaten food for days on end like mommy dearest. I'd cave at that point. NTA. That's the right way to do it. NTA. Keep teaching him to be humble and eat what's in front of him. NTA. Toddlers love to test boundaries. Your method isn't uncommon. And the kid isn't starving. FWIW. My dad is a pediatrician and this is his advice. He hates kid food because it is often junk food and he ends up treating kids for constipation because they get no fiber from chicken nuggets and fries. I would say NTA. He seems to be testing how far he can push this and what he can get away with. He basically just wants to eat snacks and tasty food. My mom did this with me. Her go-to line was, "This isn't a restaurant. You'll eat what I cook and you aren't getting anything else." I'm sure she didn't enjoy the experience either, but what you gonna do? Kids are assholes sometimes. My ma said I complained about her cooking once when I was a kid. She said she made blackened chicken and I insisted that it was burnt. So she let me choose and make my own dinner. I put a hot dog in the microwave for 5 minutes. She let it ride out and said she'd never seen a hot dog turn to dust when you touch it before. Never complained about her cooking after that. NTA. Toddlers are terrorists and we don't negotiate with terrorists. However, I will say that sometimes the food refusal is about getting some power and control rather than the foods, if you can. Maybe give him a choice at meal times between 2 different things. That might help. Giving him a choice is a good idea. I did notice that he's totally fine with eating the foods he normally will refuse if he's the one asking for them. NTA. That's what my parents used to do. If you condition your kids when they're that age to only eat fries and goldfish, they'll become adults who only eat fries and goldfish. Letting them explore new tastes as a kid is how you get them to enjoy all types of food when they are older. He may not appreciate it now, but you're doing the right thing. If you condition your kids when they're that age to only eat fries and goldfish, they'll become adults who only eat fries and goldfish. My personal experience is rather different. As a kid, I was an exceptionally picky eater and ate a dozen different things. As an adult, I've eaten everything from duck fetus to Rocky Mountain oysters. I just needed to develop the impulse on my own to venture out and explore the wider culinary world. If I'd been less picky in my adolescence, I suspect I'd have also been much less adventurous in adulthood. will probably get downvoted, but nah, because obvs I'm not going to call a 4-year-old an asshole. Giving into picky eating habits enables them and allows them to carry on into adolescence and ultimately adulthood. Things like this need to be curbed as soon as humanly possible. You're not starving your kid and you're not denying him food. You're weaning him out of a certain behavior. That said, this is 100% something you should be bringing up with your pediatrician. I would also ask if there's a pediatric nutritionist you could be referred to so that you can ensure what he's getting is wholesome and nutritious enough that when he does it, he's getting everything he needs. I do have plans on talking to his pediatrician about this. His next visit is in a few weeks. Now, I come from the perspective of a parent who could not, due to my child's medical needs, use this method. There are other ways to break picky eating habits than insisting the child has no choice but eat what is offered. My child has refused medically necessary food items that are absolutely required to be eaten, and we negotiated that at every stage of toddler and preschool behavior, and she almost never misses meals. At 4, it's pretty hard to communicate about sensory issues. There are sensory issues that are not related to autism spectrum disorders. A friend of mine has a teenager who had severe undiagnosed tongue and lip ties that were noticed by a dentist at 15. No clue how lactation consultants, doctors, specialists who investigated her daughter's issues with swallowing, and other dentists missed it, but she had resigned herself to her daughter being picky AF. The ties were fixed, and she had to relearn to eat now that her tongue actually does its job and her jaw has normal range of motion. She's experiencing food she would have never eaten now. My point is, don't engage in a battle of wills just for the sake of dominance. It's a risk that might have you working against a legitimate issue that can't be communicated now. Work through this and start teaching your child the value of a balanced diet. Maybe a reward chart that encourages your kid to try a certain number of new or different foods before he will get goldfish or french fries again. But I would suggest doing a bit more poking around on some other parenting forums. Maybe doing some reading like Ellen Satter or French Kids Eat Everything by Karen Lebelin. I absolutely think you're right to not cook a separate meal for your child, for example. But incorporating some of the advice from the books might help you avoid the confrontation in the first place. Above all, definitely tread lightly here. Early attitudes surrounding food and mealtimes can be very impactful on your son's relationship to food and healthy eating as he grows up and develops more independence around food. I don't think that making food/mealtimes a stressful, emotionally charged situation is going to be very healthy for your son and your family dynamic over the long term. Good luck. I've heard of that French Kids book and I've always been interested, but I think I'll finally pull the trigger. Thank you for the other suggestion as well. Now this is the age when some kids' taste buds go into hyperdrive. Also, kids don't always have the vocab to explain indigestion. So something he might have eaten easily in the past might taste bad now. Or it might have made him sick. A lot of people have mentioned a 3-bite rule. And I'm going to second it. It's a decent compromise, and if he still doesn't like it, give him a peanut butter sandwich. NTA. My parents never cooked, so I don't have personal experience with this. However, my best friend's mom's strategy was that if you didn't like the meal, you could have a bowl of cereal or nothing. To my understanding, it was probably some Whole Foods version of plain Cheerios. So nothing special. My friend and her siblings are all in their late 20s and speak the most highly of their mom and are wonderful people. Maybe this is a good middle ground. What did you eat if your parents didn't cook? Now, you're not a short order cook, but you may need to be mindful of real food preferences. We all have things we just think are gross and won't eat. My kids are 5 and 8, and both kinda picky. We use the method of mom decides what you eat and when, and kids decide how much. So I put dinner on the table. They have to taste everything, and then they can eat it or not. I'm not giving them anything else. If they don't eat, they can just be hungry until snack time or the next meal. I don't keep serving the same food if they don't eat it. But they are not getting PBJ or goldfish either. This teaches them to self-regulate without us fighting over food. Last night 5yo told me she wasn't eating her dinner. I told her fine. But she'd end up going to bed hungry if she didn't eat. She decided to eat it after all. I've basically been trying to use your method. I think forcing a kid to clean their plate is unhealthy, so I never make him eat every single speck of food. Now, an idea, try offering him other healthy options. My parents went with the then you can go hungry method when I was young. I developed an eating disorder around age 9, got counseling at uni and overcame it. To this day I still won't eat eggs or green peppers. Okay, but to be fair, green peppers are by far the worst of the bell peppers. Now, we have a picky 5yo. Our secret weapon, we eat off her plate. I very obviously serve her portions from my plate, so she sees it more as desirable food. And whatever she doesn't want, I take back or pass along to the baby. She thinks mushrooms are icky? Boom. I'll steal them from her plate and eat them in front of her. More for me. She thinks red potatoes are too colorful? Boom. Your toddler brother will hoover them up. Yeah, missed out. She reframes it as her food and gets jealous. Next time it's served to her she puts up much less of a fuss. I don't personally keep offering the same food for multiple meals because I think her personality would lead her to dig in the opposition to that particular food. Stealing this like you steal food. Info. Are you cooking the foods you want them to eat in different ways? I thought I didn't like veg as a kid. Turns out my mum was a horrible cook. Husband still doesn't like potatoes because his parents' version of cooking meant boiling the shit out of them. I once read an article about why children become picky at a certain age. According to the article, it's because they get more mobile and more in danger of munching on some poisonous berries or stuff. So they revert to eating only what they know, instead of eating what is put in front of them. That said, setting boundaries is a good thing. If you enjoyed this video then hit the like button and subscribe if you'd like to see more future videos.